Hello, YouTube. Welcome to part 4 of our series on modern and traditional mandolin tone. Okay, so today we're going to talk about strings, picks, technique, and setup. All these things that we can do to influence our sound. In parts 1, 2, and 3, we took a look at some players who have a signature tone, very much so, and also mandolins that lean to one camp or the other, being traditional or modern mandolin tone. Before we get into it, anybody that hasn't, I would appreciate it if you subscribe to the channel. Turn on notifications. If you're looking for some Skype lessons, you'll find a good email on me. You can also hit me in the tip jar if you want to support the channel that way. I have some PayPal information in the description of each video. Okay, right into strings. That's the first thing that we're going to cover today. I'm going to edit some pictures in for you. Two different sets that I have found to be very useful. I've been playing D'Addario strings since I was 19 years old when I was with Livewire. I was introduced to these. We had actually started with a string endorsement with them at the age of 19, and they've had so many great products down through the years and recently have introduced a lot of new things to the market that you should check out if you haven't. But for me, and with this McClanahan mandolin that I play, it really sits in the middle of these two things tonally. And the D'Addario, this is actually a Chris Thiele model, I'm pretty sure. You can see the catalog number there, EXP74CM. And definitely, if you're looking for that rounder, bigger note that's, not as pointed, not as much mid-range in your tone, these are the strings I would recommend that you try on your mandolin if that's the overall sound that you're going for. This is, again, if mandolins have a particular quality, but you can move it in one direction or the other. All right, on the other side of the fence, this is something fairly new to D'Addario, the monowound strings for mandolin. This is the set, the EJM 74, this is what I use on my McClanahan, because the strings that are wound with this material tend to have a brighter sound overall compared to the other sets. So these two different sets can put you, can move you in that direction tonally. I'm not going to try to do an A-B with the different sets of strings on the mandolins. You could hear this for yourself on your own mandolin because they're all going to respond in a different way to the strings that you put on. It's really hard to make a general statement about this that's going to hold true across the board. And some of the other things that we're going to talk about definitely are going to affect that as well. The pick that you use. I've been playing, if you watch the channel, you know that I've changed my pick hold a couple of years ago. I'm using the TAD 1R50, and I play with the more pointed tips of it. You can see here the tip that I've been using on this pick is more worn. So the sound of this pick has evolved as that particular corner has worn down. If you want an edgier sound, just the percussive sound of the pick across the string, that's part of your tone. And part of being able to hear that edge on your note is the particular corner of the pick or the shape of the pick that you're playing with, and also how worn it is. You can play with a pick for so long that it gets to the point that you feel like it doesn't sound as good as it did before all of that wear was on the pick. I used to do that all the time with these picks. The pick hold that I used years ago when I used to play with these Fender heavy picks, I didn't use the point. I used the other sides. And I would wear these down to the point that you really couldn't play with them anymore. And then a buddy of mine, Jeff Autry, he used the point. So I would give my old ones to him, and he would use them to play the point, and then I would take his old ones and use the round side. So it kind of worked out good when the two of us were picking together all the time. So there we have with picks. Again, notice that your how much wear you have on the pick, and also the shape of it. If you're looking for a pointed note with more definition, try a teardrop pick playing with the point as opposed to playing with the round side, and you will hear a difference in the actual sound and tone that you get with the instrument, not only with the material in the pick, but the shape of it. Okay, now, technique. This is where the first thing that would come to mind is going to obviously be for playing tone. If you're playing, further away from the bridge, you get a rounder note. And if you're right back here on the bridge, it's a more pointed note. And don't automatically hear that and think, well, I'm never going to play back there, because there are plenty of times in a bluegrass setting where that edge is going to work better to function within the band. And then the artsier sound where I'm not as close to the bridge. A very logical thing that hopefully you discover day one when you're playing the mandolin, and we should develop a sensibility to that so that we really don't have to think about it. That should be an automatic reaction depending on the sound that's going to work with the music that you're a part of. Or if you're playing a solo thing, how do you want that tone to sound? So proximity to the bridge is a big deal. Then also the angle of the pick. I'm going to exaggerate this so that you can see it. But if I lean my hand way down and get more of an angle playing through the string, as compared to the pick being just right there across the string, just as square as you could get it to go, is not going to be as round of a note. Now I'm going to go back to very much an angle. Hear the difference in those two notes? Pretty drastic. Heavy angle as compared to pick right across the string. Now the angle. That has a lot to do with how much edge there is on that note and how much of the mid-range quality that you bring out in the instrument because of that first percussive sound. Like I say, the sound of the pick across the string is part of your overall tone. So those are some things as far as technique to watch out for with your right hand, and make a difference in which one of these sounds do you like best, which one works with what you're playing, and what can you do to influence it. Okay, now on to setup. And this is I really think that setup, is so much about playability and being in love with your instrument because it feels great, but it does make a difference in this tone, or the tonal conversation that we're having. The first time that I noticed this would have been back in the late 90s after I bought my old Fern. I lowered the action on it at one point, probably lower than I'd ever had the action on any of my mandolins, and it created a particular sizzle, especially on the E and the A strings. I tend to keep my action lower on the E and the A than I do on the D and the G, just for the purpose of the chop, that we get that so much of the quality of the chord comes from the D and the G strings, and you don't want those to buzz when you play your chop. And then on the E and the A string, they help to provide more of the or the percussive sound of the pick as you play through the chop. So by having those strings lower, it makes it easier. Typically when we go up the neck, for so many of us, especially under the bluegrass umbrella, we're probably playing more on the E and the A strings if we go up to this neighborhood of the fretboard. So having the action lower there is going to make it easier for your left hand, but it can also create a really nice sizzle in your tone, just that slight little sound of the string breaking up just a little bit, which is a quality that I really like. And I first heard it in that old Fern, and I really liked the sound. And I've heard Bobby Osborne get tone like that. He's one of my favorite tone players, especially playing tremolo. It's so believable when you just listening to him play tremolo on the mandolin. It's kind of like listening to his vocal. It just sounds so natural. And I believe that for so many people, the conversation that we're having with all of this, these could be a lot of things that some of these, really gifted players never really think about. I don't think I did until after becoming a teacher, and you get these questions and you try to answer it to the best that you can. But at the end of the day, your mojo, like the amount of time that you spend playing the mandolin, all of that stuff makes a difference. And we just kind of evolve into who we are. And I think this is going to be an example of it. We're going to close out here with, I put best tone ever with a question mark in the thumbnail. And this could be it.
Good to have you with us, sir. What do you say? Will you tell them what we're going to do? Would you let me play one on the mandolin for the folks? I wish you would. Southern flavor. All right.
Okay, so Bill Monroe's tone, man, if you're under the bluegrass umbrella, you got to admit that we all, the reason that we're playing the mandolin is from that guy right there. And if you listen to that sound, and that's a great video, you can see his right hand and the way it functions. I'm not sure how much thought he put into strings and picks and technique and setup or any of this stuff that we're talking about today. But that sound is what we're going for, or at least, to some extent, all of us are descendants of what Bill Monroe did. If you're under the bluegrass umbrella, it's like Amway. Everything would go back to him at the top of the pyramid, and then it just kind of spreads out, and we get all these different sounds. There are so many great tone players that I would love to make a part of this. I just don't want it, to end up being like a 10-part thing, but hopefully, if you haven't ever put much thought into your mandolin tone and what it is that you're looking for, maybe these 4 videos can help guide you in a certain way. I hope you've enjoyed.